To be a shepherd of Christ, to be a priest, is a great privilege. To be a bishop is even a greater privilege. To be the Holy Father is the greatest of all privileges. But the ultimate privilege, of course, is not to be a priest or a bishop or a pope, but to be a child of God. That is the highest dignity that anyone can be bestowed upon. Because the offices of a priest, of a bishop, or the Holy Father, they remain offices, which means to say they are meant to be functional. They are entrusted and vested with authority in order to serve, not for their own personal gains. I think this must be made very clear. That is what St. Peter said, take this, watch over it, not simply as a duty, but gladly because God wants it, not for solid money, because you are eager to do it. And so it's very important for us always to remember that when we are given an office is always for the service of the people of God. The office is not given in order to boost our ego or to make our life more comfortable or to enjoy the privileges that comes with the office. Yes, indeed, all officers will have privileges. But these privileges are not given, and I must repeat, those of us who hold office, privileges are not given to the person per se. It is given to the office, so that the person who exercises that office can exercise it efficiently. Yes, it is true, the bishop has many people to help him. He has many staff. The bishop has priority when it comes to certain things. He has privileges. He comes at the right time and he is assured of a parking lot. That is all true. But it is not because of him. It's because the privileges are given so that he can perform his duties efficiently, so that he will not be caught in a traffic jam, so that he will be able to be available to do more things instead of queuing up and waiting for 2 hours to get things done. So the privileges, therefore, are never meant for the person, it's for the office. And so when we complete our office, we must voluntarily give up the privileges, because we do not need the privileges anymore. The privileges don't come with us until death do us part, until the office do us part. That is the end of the privileges. And we must be conscious that we are the same like anybody else. What differentiates us is our responsibility. And so today, when we celebrate the chair of St. Peter the Apostle, we are celebrating responsibility given to St. Peter and his successors, the Vicar of Christ. And so St. Peter, therefore, and the Holy Father, the popes, who are his successors, including, of course, by extension, the successors of the apostles, the bishops, they have been given an office and a responsibility. And therefore, with the privileges comes this responsibility of protecting the church, of guarding the church. The Lord told Peter, you are Peter, on this rock I will build my church. On the faith of Peter, the church will be built. And not only that, whatever decisions he makes will be considered decisive for the church. Of course, we are speaking about the use of papal infallibility. Of course, papal infallibility not just includes the Holy Father, but includes the whole magisterium when the Pope speaks as head or in union with the rest of the bishops. An infallible statement can be made. But again, it is all for the purpose of protecting the deposit of faith. It is not, again, entrusted to the person per se. It's to the office. That's why when the Pope resigns, he doesn't have the gift of infallibility anymore, because he is no longer exercising that office. The privilege is given to the office, not to the person. We who have been given the office and the privileges, then we must assume our responsibility. And truly, all of us, we are all shepherds of Christ in our own way. Whether you're at home, whether in the office, whether in the world, we are all called to be shepherds of Christ. And we need to assume, therefore, our responsibility, take our responsibility seriously. As St. Peter reminds us, be shepherds of the flock of God that is entrusted to you. Watch over it. The shepherds of the flock of God. The flock of God belongs to God, doesn't belong to you. The parishioners, they do not belong to the priest. The Archdiocese, they do not belong to the bishop. They belong to God. We are just exercising on behalf of God. Your children don't belong to you. Your children belongs to God. As parents, you have to exercise the responsibility of ensuring that the child is brought up in the faith, brought up to live a good life, brought up to reflect the glory of God. Nothing belongs to us. Everyone is a flock of God. Everyone is a sheep of God. And we are only exercising responsibility. I think it's important because sometimes we think that we own certain people. Sometimes we think we own certain privileges. We don't own anything. It is God who has entrusted the gifts to us, the people to us, and therefore we must watch over it. Not simply as a duty, but gladly. I feel a little bit uncomfortable when people say, I don't want to do this job, but God appointed me, so I have to do it, Well, let me put it this way. If it is said in the sense of humility, that you do not desire, there is no ambition, in other words, to get this appointment, but you have been trusted with this appointment. So, in the sense that if you are not desiring it, then it is the right thing to say. This is not what I really want. But if God has appointed you, and God has called you, then you must say, therefore, since God has called me, I must therefore accept it gladly. Because if you say, I'm a reluctant servant, you can't do much. Every day be grumbling. So that is very important because you love Jesus. That's why you're assuming a responsibility. But again, we know very well that to assume responsibility is not easy. Even for Peter, we know that St. Peter himself was a weak man. All leaders are weak. We are ignorant in many ways. We are not perfect. Even St. Peter, after proclaiming Jesus as the Son of the living God, next moment he was reprimanded by Jesus because he could not accept a suffering Messiah. And Jesus said, get behind me, Satan. And even Peter, the one who was so sure of himself, who wanted to die for Jesus, he also betrayed Jesus. But the good thing that Jesus said to him is, don't worry, when you fall, you will be forgiven and you will rise up stronger to give courage and support to your fellow brothers. So, as leaders, we are all fallible in our own life. We are not perfect. And I think it's very important, therefore, that for us to be a leader, we have many decisions to make. We have all kinds of difficulties, oppositions, sometimes enemies. Not our enemies, but they make us their enemies, what to do. But I think at the end of the day, what is important is that we have to do the right thing. And this is where I think it's very important. That's why we need prayers. We need prayers for those in leaders, those in office. Because we are weak, we can be tempted, we can be misled. While we are called to be true to our faith, we are living in a world that is extremely complex. In those days, you just say and people obey. Now you say, people say, I disagree with you. You please obey me. So today, obedience is totally reversed. And life is very complex. Different lifestyle, different ways of doing things, different values. To uphold the values itself is a real challenge. And that is why everything becomes so gray today that to be a leader today really entails a lot of challenges. It can be very daunting. And it's true, especially if you are a religious leaders, because we try to protect the values of the gospel. And of course, we have much opposition from a very secular world, a very fragmented world. So what are we going to do? That's why I said it's important. We need to pray, really. We need to pray for leaders. That's why the greatest thing you can do for a priest, a bishop, or the pope is to pray. And I think also that when we talk about the question of being a leader, here also St. Peter mentioned, I as an elder myself, a witness to the sufferings of Christ, with which I have a share in the glory that is to be revealed. When we assume leadership, please be mindful that leadership always comes with suffering. You cannot avoid, it's inevitable, because you have to make decisions and you have to say certain things because you want to be true to yourself, true to the values of the gospel of the organization. And therefore, St. Peter himself understands we are witness to the sufferings. Actually, to suffer with Christ is a great privilege, because when we suffer for someone, it is a great privilege if this is someone whom we love. We have to think further than just the sufferings alone. Of course, it is always a temptation for us when suffering comes, we tend to focus on the suffering. But St. Peter said, we must focus on the glory that is to be revealed. When the chief shepherd appears, you'll be given a crown of unfading glory. So we don't suffer now, we think of the future. Think of the sufferings, especially when you parents suffer. You think of your children's future. You don't mind suffering. So we don't mind suffering for the greater joy. And that is the great joy. So we don't just look at our sufferings only, we look ahead, not just for the glory that is to come on this earth, but for the eternal glory. And last of all, when we suffer, then the beautiful responsorial psalm, the Lord is my shepherd, can be said at all times. It applies to all occasions, because to know that the Lord is our shepherd gives us great strength. So in times of pain, loneliness, frustration, you feel very down, then we just sing, the Lord is my shepherd. It's a beautiful psalm reminding us that we are never alone, but Jesus suffers with us.